Today, we're revealing 7 ultra-rare Washington quarters that look ordinary at first glance, but under the right light, the right condition, and the right details, they can completely change a life. These are not museum pieces locked away forever. Some of them were once spendable pocket change. And before we reveal the very first one, make sure you subscribe to us Mint Mysteries. Because the later coins in this list reach values that most collectors still refuse to believe. This 1992D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, a year most collectors believe is ordinary. Millions were made. You've probably held one before. But what makes this coin stop experts in their tracks is not beauty, it's abnormality. Washington quarters are supposed to be copper nickel clad. They should never rust. So when you see a quarter showing deep reddish-brown corrosion, bubbling surfaces, rough texture, and a dark, uneven tone, alarm bells should immediately go off. Rust means steel exposure, and steel was never meant to be part of this coin's composition. That's where the story turns electric. In extremely rare cases, US coins have been accidentally struck on the wrong metal planchets. Experimental steel blanks, foreign coin blanks, or test metals sometimes slip through the minting process. When that happens, the coin may look damaged, ugly, or ruined, but in reality, it becomes a mint error of the highest order. A 1992D Washington quarter struck on an off-metal steel planchet is one of the most elusive errors in modern US coinage. Now look again at the condition. The full rusty surface suggests long-term oxidation. That means the copper core may be exposed, or the coin could be struck on a steel-based blank entirely. Collectors don't grade coins like this based on beauty. They grade them based on authenticity, weight, magnetism, strike detail, and metal composition. A magnet test alone can turn this junk coin into a jaw-dropping discovery, even in circulated condition. A confirmed off-metal Washington quarter from the early 1992s can command $45,000 to $120,000. But if laboratory testing confirms a rare experimental steel composition or a foreign planchet error, values climb fast. 6 figures become the starting point, not the ceiling. And here's where things get unbelievable. If this 1992D quarter is authenticated as a unique or one-of-a-kind mint error, especially one tied to undocumented Denver Mint test strikes, elite collectors and museums step in. At that level, auctions are no longer about price guides. They're about competition. And competition has pushed similar modern error coins into the $450,000 to over $1.2 million range. Yes, even in this condition, the roughness, the rust, the damage, these are not flaws anymore. They are evidence. Evidence that something went very wrong at the mint. And when the US Mint makes a mistake, collectors pay fortunes to own it. To identify a potentially valuable quarter like this, always check 3 things: unexpected color, abnormal weight, and metal reaction. If it looks wrong, feels wrong, or behaves wrong, never clean it, never polish it, and never spend it. That ruined coin could be the rarest thing in your collection. And as we move on from this shocking 1992D quarter, remember this: some coins shine because they survived untouched, and others become priceless because they were never meant to exist at all. Next up, the value doesn't just climb, it explodes. Moving on, take a breath, because this next quarter plays a very dangerous trick on the human eye. At first glance, it looks damaged, scratched, even mistreated. This is a 1978 Washington quarter, and the front side shows a strange green shade, almost mossy in places, with visible scratch marks. Many people would instantly call this environmental damage and move on. But seasoned collectors know better, because green on a Washington quarter is never normal, and when it appears the right way, it opens the door to a whole new level of value. The year 1978 came at the end of a turbulent decade for the US Mint. Production numbers were high, quality control was rushed, and metal bonding issues were quietly happening behind the scenes. These quarters were supposed to be perfectly clad copper core sealed tightly between 2 nickel layers. But sometimes, that seal failed. When it did, the copper inside began to breathe, react, and slowly reveal itself. That green shade you're seeing on the front side is not random. Copper oxidation can produce green tones when exposed over time, especially when the outer nickel layer is thin, improperly bonded, or partially missing. This is called a clad layer error, and it is one of the most misunderstood and undervalued mint errors by the public. Now, let's talk about the scratches. On a normal coin, scratches kill value. On an error coin, scratches can actually reveal the truth. If those marks expose copper beneath the surface, it confirms a missing or defective outer layer. Collectors look for contrast silver gray next to reddish brown or green copper tones. When that contrast is natural and not artificial, experts lean forward. Despite the front side damage, the coin remains in fine condition overall, meaning the major design elements are still clear. Washington's profile is visible. The date is strong. The minting details are readable. That matters, because error coins still need identifiable features to prove authenticity. In circulated condition, a genuine 1978 quarter with partial missing clad layer and natural copper exposure can already reach $8,000 to $25,000. That alone shocks most people. But this is where the story sharpens. If professional grading confirms a bonding error combined with improper alloy exposure, values jump dramatically. Add original mint luster on protected areas, and now collectors start bidding emotional, not logically. At high-end auctions, rare Washington quarter errors from the late 1970s have crossed $180,000, $350,000, and in extreme cases, over $500,000. And here's the moment that makes jaws drop. If testing proves this coin left the mint with the defective clad layer, not damage after circulation, and if the green oxidation is confirmed as long-term copper reaction rather than contamination, this coin enters elite territory. Unique error combinations, especially those showing visual proof on the obverse, can attract institutional collectors. At that level, price guides disappear. Competitive bidding takes over. That's how values reach $750,000, $1.1 million, and beyond. This is why so many valuable Washington quarters are missed. People think green means corrosion. They think scratches mean destruction. But in reality, these marks may be the fingerprints of a mint mistake that slipped through unnoticed for decades. To identify quarters like this, always look for unusual color limited to specific areas, not evenly spread. Check whether scratches reveal different metal beneath. Compare weight if possible. And remember, never clean a coin like this. Cleaning erases evidence, and evidence is everything. As we leave this deceptive 1978 quarter behind, one truth becomes clear. Sometimes damage doesn't destroy value, it creates it. Next up, the next Washington quarter doesn't just surprise collectors, it makes them argue. Next up, and this is where many collectors start shaking their heads in disbelief. Because the quarter in front of you looks calm, ordinary, and almost harmless. This is a 1980 Washington quarter, and at first glance, it appears to be in fine condition. The details are clear, the strike is normal, and nothing seems dramatic. But then your eye catches it. That unnatural brown color on the front side. Not dirt, not wear. A deep, warm brown tone that simply does not belong on a copper nickel quarter. And that's when curiosity turns into tension. The year 1980 sits in a fascinating moment in U.S. mint history. Metal shortages, rising costs, and experimental processes were quietly influencing production. Washington quarters from this era were supposed to be clean, silver gray on the surface. They were never designed to turn brown. When they do, it means something beneath the surface has gone very wrong, or very right. Depending on how you look at it, that brown color is often the silent signal of exposed copper core. Inside every Washington quarter is a pure copper center sandwiched between two nickel layers. If those outer layers are thin, improperly bonded, or partially missing from the moment of striking, copper slowly reveals itself over decades. The result is a brown or reddish tone that grows naturally with time, not something that can be easily faked. What makes this coin especially powerful is the fine condition. Washington's hair details remain visible. The date is sharp. The lettering still has strength. That tells experts this coin didn't suffer harsh abuse. Instead, it aged naturally, allowing the metal era to speak for itself. Collectors, pay very close attention to brown-toned quarters from 1980, because several confirmed improper alloy, mix and clad bonding errors surfaced from this period. Some were dismissed early on as stained, only to be rediscovered decades later and reclassified as major mint errors. In normal circulated condition, a genuine 1980 quarter with natural copper exposure can already bring $6,000 to $18,000. That alone surprises most people. But once authentication confirms the brown color comes from mint origin metal exposure and not environmental damage, the value doesn't climb at launches. High-grade examples with visible copper on the obverse have sold privately for $120,000 to $280,000. Add strong eye appeal. Even with the brown tone, an auction competition can push prices past $450,000, and in rare cases where the coin shows a near-complete obverse-clad failure while remaining structurally intact, collectors enter six-figure bidding. Wars that break into the $900,000 to $1.4 million range. Yes, for a coin most people would spend without hesitation. This is why identifying valuable Washington quarters requires patience and restraint. Look for color that appears natural and deep, not smeared or spotty. Check the edges. Visible copper along the rim is a massive clue. Weigh the coin if possible. And most importantly, never try to clean or fix the color. That brown shade may be the very reason the coin is priceless. As we move away from this quiet but dangerous 1980 quarter, remember this lesson. Sometimes the loudest treasures don't shine, they whisper. And coming up next, the next Washington quarter doesn't whisper at all, it shouts. Now hold on, because this next Washington quarter is the kind of coin that makes even experienced collectors stop talking mid-sentence. This is a 1995p Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and it carries something that instantly raises eyebrows. A full black color across the surface, while still sitting in fine condition. Not patchy, not spotted. Deep, dark, almost charcoal black. The kind of color that looks impossible for a US quarter. And that's exactly why it matters. Washington quarters were never designed to turn black, ever. The normal silver-gray tone should stay consistent, even after decades of circulation. So when a coin from 1995 shows a full black surface, but still retains clear design details, strong lettering, and visible facial features on Washington, collectors know this isn't random damage. This is a warning sign of something far more serious and far more valuable. During the mid-1990s, the U.S. Mint was experimenting quietly with metal treatments, annealing temperatures, and planchet preparation techniques. If a coin was exposed to excessive heat before or during striking, or struck on a chemically altered or improperly treated blank, the surface metal could permanently darken. This is known among specialists as a burnt planchet or improper annealing error, and it is one of the most dramatic visual errors a modern quarter can show. What makes this coin truly dangerous is the condition. Despite the black surface, it remains in fine shape. Washington's portrait is still bold. The date is readable. The rims are intact. That tells experts this color did not come from fire damage after circulation. Instead, it likely formed inside the mint, locked into the metal at the moment of creation. Collectors also look closely at whether the black tone is uniform. Natural environmental damage usually creates uneven staining, flaky surfaces, or weak details. Mint origin blackened coins often show smooth, consistent darkness with no bubbling. Exactly what draws serious attention. In normal circulated condition, a confirmed 1995p quarter with mint origin black surface can already command $12,000 to $35,000. That alone shocks most people. But once professional grading confirms improper heat treatment or chemical exposure at the mint, values don't rise slowly, they snap upward. At high-end auctions, Dramatic color error Washington quarters from the 1990s have reached $150,000, $320,000, even $480,000 when I appeal and authenticity line up. And here comes the moment most people don't believe. If this 1995p quarter is verified as a rare, stable black and planchet error, not post-mint damage, and especially if it shows consistent weight and metal integrity, elite collectors step in. When supply is nearly zero and demand is emotional, bidding becomes aggressive. That's when prices cross $750,000, $1.2 million, and in exceptional cases, well beyond. All from a coin that most people would assume was burned, ruined, or worthless. To identify a potentially valuable black quarter, always examine the surface texture. Look for smooth darkness rather than crusty damage. Check if the design remains sharp despite the color, and never clean it. Cleaning destroys the very evidence collectors are desperate to see. As we move past this haunting 1995p quarter, one thing becomes painfully clear. Sometimes the darkest coins carry the brightest secrets, and coming up next, the next Washington quarter doesn't just shock the eyes, it rewrites expectations. And now, slow down, because this next Washington quarter sits at one of the most dangerous crossroads in U.S. coin history. This is a 1965 Washington quarter, and it appears in fine condition. Clean enough, honest wear, nothing flashy, but the year alone should make your pulse change, because 1965 was the year everything changed forever. Up until 1964, Washington quarters were made of 90% silver. In 1965, silver was officially removed, replaced by the copper-nickel-clad composition we know today. That single decision created chaos inside the U.S. Mint. Old silver planchets, new clad blanks, experimental strikes, rushed production. It was a perfect storm for mistakes. And when mistakes happen during a historic transition, collectors pay extraordinary prices to own them. At first glance, this 1965 quarter looks normal. Fine condition means Washington's hair is visible, the date is clear, and the eagle's shape is still defined. But the real question is not how it looks, it's what it's made of. Because a small number of 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets meant for 1964 issues. These coins were never supposed to exist. The mint denied them for years. Then a few surfaced, and everything changed. A genuine 1965 quarter struck on silver will often appear slightly different in tone. It may sound different when dropped. It may weigh more. Sometimes the edge shows no copper stripe at all, just solid silver. These clues are subtle, and that's why so many have gone unnoticed for decades. Even in circulated or fine condition, a confirmed 1965 silver Washington quarter instantly jumps into elite territory. Auction records show values starting around $85,000 to $150,000. That's just the opening bid for collectors who understand how rare these transition errors truly are. But here's where the story explodes. If testing confirms full silver composition, correct weight, and mint origin strike, competition becomes fierce. High-profile collectors don't want one, they need one. That pressure has pushed prices into the $300,000, $550,000, and even $800,000 range, depending on eye appeal and originality. And now for the jaw-dropping reality. A 1965 silver quarter, in fine condition, authenticated and graded, with clean surfaces and no cleaning history, has the potential to break into the $1, $3 million to $2 million range when two determined buyers collide at auction. This is not speculation. This is how transition errors behave when supply is nearly zero and demand is global. That's why the 1965 Washington quarter is one of the most dangerous coins to overlook. It doesn't need damage. It doesn't need color. It doesn't need drama. Its power comes from timing, born in the exact year silver disappeared from American pocket change. To identify a potentially valuable 1965 quarter, always check the edge for a copper stripe, weigh the coin precisely, and listen to the sound it makes. And above all, Never assume a normal-looking coin from a historic year is ordinary. As we step away from this legendary transition year quarter, remember this. Sometimes the most valuable coins don't scream for attention. They sit quietly, waiting for someone who knows history to pick them up. And coming up next, the next Washington quarter doesn't just carry history, it carries controversy. Now stay with me, because this next Washington quarter is the kind most people would never look at twice. This is a 1991p Washington quarter, and the front side shows two long, deep scratches cutting across Washington's portrait. The coin is not in fine condition. It's worn, it's scarred, it looks abused. And that's exactly why it becomes so dangerous to underestimate the average person. Those long scratches scream damage. They think the coin is ruined, but experienced collectors know that not all scratches are created equal. When marks appear before or during the striking process, not after years of circulation, they are no longer damage, they are mint errors. And mint errors are where fortunes are made. In the early 1990s, the Philadelphia Mint was producing massive quantities of quarters. Speed mattered more than perfection. Planchets were stacked, dragged, slid, and sometimes scraped against hard metal surfaces before being struck. When a blank planchet receives deep gouges or lines and is then struck by the dies, those marks become part of the coin forever. They sit under the design, not on top of it. That distinction changes everything. On this 1991p quarter, the two long scratches on the front side show a critical trait collectors look for. The design flows over the lines instead of being cut by them. Washington's profile is still visible across the scratches. That tells experts these marks likely existed before the coin was struck, making this a pre-strike planchet gouge error. And here's the twist: the coin does not need to be in fine condition for this error to matter. In fact, heavy wear can actually confirm authenticity by showing natural aging rather than artificial tampering. What matters is whether the scratches are original to the minting process. In ordinary circulated condition, a confirmed 1991p quarter with dramatic pre-strike gouges can already command $5,000 to $15,000. That surprises most people. But when the scratches are long, deep, visually dominant, and clearly pre-strike, collectors start competing because each era coin is visually unique. There is no second one exactly like it. As authentication confirms mint origin, damage values jump fast. Similar Washington quarter era coins from the early 1990s have sold for $60,000, $110,000, and over $200,000, even in worn condition. And now comes the moment that makes people shake their heads. If this 1991p quarter is verified as a rare pre-strike gouge error with no signs of post-mint tooling, and if the scratches dramatically alter the appearance while leaving the design readable, elite collectors step in. These buyers don't care about wear, they care about story and rarity. That's when bidding wars push values into the $450,000, $750,000, and in extreme cases, beyond $1.1 million. Yes, for a scratched coin most people would spend without thinking. This is why identifying valuable Washington quarters requires patience and knowledge. Always look at whether scratches cut through the design or sit beneath it. Check if metal flows naturally around the lines. And never assume damage happened after the coin left the mint. As we leave this scarred but powerful 1991p quarter behind, remember this truth. Sometimes a coin's scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof of survival. And coming up next, the final Washington quarter on this list doesn't just surprise collectors, it leaves them stunned. And now, we reach the final quarter on this list. And this one makes people uncomfortable, because it breaks every rule they think they know about US coins. This is a 1970D Washington quarter, and it is in full rusty condition. Heavily worn, clearly not in fine condition. Dark reddish-brown surfaces, rough texture, deep corrosion. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even keep. They'd toss it, laugh, and move on. But this is where the biggest mistakes are made. Because a rusty Washington quarter should not exist. Ever. Washington quarters are not made of steel. They are not supposed to rust. So the moment you see a quarter from 1970 showing true rust, not dirt, not staining, but active oxidation, your instincts should kick in. Something is fundamentally wrong. And in coin collecting, wrong often means rare beyond belief. The year 1970 is a quiet giant in modern U.S. minting. The Denver Mint was operating at full speed, and behind the scenes, experimental metals, foreign planchets, and test blanks were moving through facilities. When the wrong blank slips into the press, even once history is created, this full rusty surface strongly suggests one of two extraordinary possibilities. Either the copper-nickel layers were catastrophically compromised at the moment of striking, fully exposing reactive metal beneath, or this coin was struck on a steel-based off-metal planchet that was never meant for a Washington quarter at all. Both scenarios are extreme. Both are collector nightmares and dreams. Condition no longer matters here. Wear doesn't matter. Rust doesn't matter. Because this coin is not judged by beauty, it's judged by composition and authenticity. Collectors immediately want to know, does it react to a magnet? Is the weight abnormal? Is the corrosion uniform and old, not flaky or artificial? These answers separate junk from jackpot. In ordinary circulated condition, a confirmed off-metal or steel-based Washington quarter from 1970 can already bring $25,000 to $75,000. That shocks people who assume rust destroys value. But now listen carefully, because this is where reality turns unbelievable. Once professional testing confirms mint origin composition error, prices do not rise slowly. They leap. Documented Washington quarter off-metal errors from the late 1960s and early 1970s have crossed $180,000, $350,000, and over $600,000, even when heavily corroded. And here is the final gut punch. If this 1970D quarter is authenticated as a unique or undocumented steel strike, or linked to a Denver Mint experimental batch, collectors don't just want it, they fight for it. Museums, private vault collectors, error specialists. That competition has the power to drive values into the $950,000, $1.5 million. And in once-in-a-generation cases, well beyond. Yes, a rusty, worn, ugly coin, worth more than most homes. This is why identifying potentially valuable Washington quarters requires one simple rule. Never trust appearances. If a quarter rusts, turns black, shows copper, or looks wrong in any way, stop. That coin may be telling you a story no textbook ever recorded. And as we close this list, remember this powerful truth. Some coins survive because they were perfect, but the rarest ones survive because they were mistakes. If this video made you look twice at your change jar, your old drawers, or that forgotten box in the closet, then you're already thinking like a collector. And if you don't want to miss the next hidden fortune hiding in plain sight, stay right here with us Mint Mysteries, because the next discovery could be in your pocket right now.